Wednesday, October 26, 2016. Vice Chair, would you mind leading us in the pledge?
Not mind at all. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. For tonight's agenda, first up at 6:30, we'll be doing November 16, 2016 special town meeting adopting article recommendations. So we've got a subset of the articles we've been looking at. We'll vote to recommend the ones that will go on the town meeting warrant. 7 p.m. Economic Development Incentive Program. Two items underneath that: the Patriot Beverage LLC Tax Incremental Financing Agreement, and call November 16, 2016 special town meeting. 7:20, plowing, sanding private ways, petitions for temporary repairs at a butter's expense, and then finally minutes approval at 7:25. All right, so let's get started with article recommendations.
And so, Madam Chair, what I've done here is the articles that are listed in the agenda are the ones that you have not taken a position on yet. So I put those up on the screen and on a couple of screens, but we'll start with this one. And this identifies the dollar amounts that are now proposed to be plugged into various articles. And just it starts with maybe the main event, and the reason why we're here tonight as opposed to last night is that yesterday bids were opened on the fire station project. We got 9 bids. They were great, that they were all clustered at the lower end of a number that was what our architect had estimated. So that they came in between 6.5 and 7.4 million. So we're going with, actually I'll jump ahead, I think here it is. That the low bid is 6.5. The total project cost that the architect recommends is 8.9, and that includes, essentially rounded off the previous number that we had, and where the previous estimate that we saw had a contingency of 10%. It was advised that rather than reduce the project cost, increase the contingency amount. It's an old building, you may need it or may not need it. If no contingencies come up, then we don't spend them. Then we don't spend that money, and we don't borrow the full amount. So, we're. I'd have to say this is great. That the process that the chief and the PMBC and that their team followed was exactly what we asked for, which is to have bids in hand by tonight, so that we can put it in the voter information. In addition to the construction bids, there was also a lease proposal that had to be issued to find temporary quarters, and the cost of that has come in. That's going to be $150,000 for temporary quarters. So all in all, you've got 8.9 million as the project cost. The other soft costs include things like the furnishings and other things that don't fit into a category. But so in general, what we've got is the big projects. We've got a number of $4 million for alumni field renovations. We had some numbers on the other capital projects previously, and we've been able to get a figure of $20,000 for the town government building space needs assessment from the couple of members. I don't think PMBC has voted on it yet, but I heard from Rich Crowley and Joe Colentro that they had one proposal for a lower amount, but figured let's round up based on what we might need. So that's a total of $320,000 in capital projects in Article 5. And then use of the Capital Stabilization Fund in Article 6, that's the balance of $2.9 million. There's $164,000 in the that's available to be transferred from the alumni field design article to the alumni field construction article, because only about $70,000 of the design money was expended. So we can transfer that in. That reduces the amount that would need to be borrowed for construction phase of Alumni Field. And reaching some conclusion on those things then allows us to go back and look at what's the total amount that's available for spending at town meeting. It was that $800,000 and change that Bonnie had indicated. And so if we're applying $320,000 in Article 5, that would allow us to apply $532,000 to the debt exclusion stabilization fund, which will be of great benefit in towards capital projects and reducing reducing the impact on the property taxpayers. So that, and we haven't put any money in that fund before. So these are particular recommendations that we have on those funding projects. Just to run through, here's what I just put up about the fire station. And then we have a cost estimate for Alumni Field, which, as I said, the $4 million total can be reduced by $164,000 in cash. So you borrow 3.8 to achieve that. Let's see. And then we've got the remaining articles that the board has not yet adopted a position on is Article 11, acquiring the 5 acres of surplus Mass DOT property. We had not taken action at our last meeting because the Community Preservation Committee, which is the funding source, had not yet voted. They have since voted. They voted last week to recommend $205,000 in CPA open space funds for that acquisition, so we could go ahead and adopt that recommendation. We have not reached agreement yet on the Joyce Williams property. That we received a revised proposal today, which I just forwarded to you all. I know Attorney Ray Lyons is in the audience, and Town Council Tom Harrington will be here shortly. So I don't know, and one of the entities that is not here tonight is the funding agency. The Community Preservation Committee would be the entity that would need to, it's been our plan that if we're going to acquire this property, it would be through CPA funding. And I know Fred's here, who's on the Community Preservation Committee, and from what I took away from the CPC meeting last week, which Ray Lyons had also attended, was that the Community Preservation Committee will be ready to meet once there's an agreement reached. And so I would submit that there's a two-step process. One is that, step one is that the Board of Selectmen would reach an agreement with the seller about what's proposed to be acquired and at what cost. Step one. Step two would be to get a recommendation on the funding of that through the Community Preservation Committee for this Article 12 that's on the special town meeting warrant. Now, if all of those things can happen between now and town meeting, then we can go forward. If all of those things don't happen between now and town meeting, we don't go forward. We certainly want to explore that possibility because you recall that the board had submitted an application for a $400,000 land grant back in July. I guess it would be unfortunate if we got the grant, yet we're not able to come to an agreement if we had wanted to come, to be able to reach an agreement. So
Remind me, when will we hear back on that grant?
after town, best information is after town meeting. And in fact, the form of the vote for town meeting is that it would be that the spending at town meeting is conditional on getting the grant. So if town meeting voted to do it, if, let's say, we had the deal all wrapped up and we're ready to go, we bring it to town meeting, the voters approve it, but the grant, well, you don't get the grant, then that deal doesn't go forward, and we need to revisit it at a future town meeting.
Thank you.
So, I'm not, as a practical matter, I'm not sure what we can accomplish tonight on short order. And the other and the other reason that I should have mentioned, the real reason we're here on a Wednesday night is not just because bids were open yesterday, but because the town meeting report booklet that goes to the voters goes to the printer tomorrow. So this is our window to make sure that the recommendations from Selectmen, and also FinCom is here watching and is going to adopt their own recommendations, is that you can be informed by the most up-to-date information we have, so before the publication deadline. The other articles on,
Keith, just
yeah, I'm sorry.
one question from Fred.
Fred.
Just one point on the Williams land. I think the tenor of the discussion was positive, but there's a moving target on that, on the discussions. The amount of land to be purchased, as well as some easements and whatnot. So there was really nothing to discuss other than it's a nice piece of land, a reasonable price. Yeah, I think we should try to support it, but we really had no more in front of us than that to talk about, so.
And we did get some clarification today from Attorney Lyons that there are two specific proposals that I won't get
that's
into
fine.
details, but there's specific proposals for acreage at particular dollar values, which is more information than we've had before to be able to
We didn't have it
review.
the last time.
No, yeah, and we just got that.
When we were meeting every night for a week, right?
People started to talk about Fred.
But it certainly seems like that there may be a path that allows us to get, we're getting closer, and there may be a path that allows us to reach an agreement, but without the, the board needs to discuss that, and then we need to plug in the funder, the CPC. So.
Okay.
And like you said, we will try to do what we can to come to those agreements.
Yeah, it would be great if we can reach an agreement in time for the vote. It's clear to me that we're going to miss the publication deadline. There's no vote we can take tonight to say that we're going to spend X dollars from the community preservation funds, because we don't have the CPC here tonight to do that. So there's still some other steps. And I think we'll probably then circle around November 7th at the Selectmen's next meeting, the next regular meeting, as our sort of last best opportunity to come to a deal.
Makes sense.
Then, three remaining articles that the board has not adopted a position on. One is the tax title property, the Narcissus Road, that town council had been tasked to sort of redraft the motion and come back specifically with language that reflected the board's desire to restrict development and only have one buildable lot. Tom has done that. And Tom will be here in a few minutes to answer questions as well. But that the language that's offered in your packet would address that. And then the other two, you have not, there's two voter petitions. Sometimes the board adopts recommendations, sometimes you don't, but I'm just calling to your attention that you have not adopted a recommendation on those two. So those are those articles are the ones that are left to be voted on.
All right, so should we go through them one by one, or?
Sure.
Yeah, start at the top? Start at the beginning? Good. Okay, debt exclusion stabilization fund. So Keith, based on what you said, we had an available amount, some 800,000, subtract what went in Article 5, and that's what's left over. Seems pretty seems straightforward. Any comments or questions on that, board? No. FinCom stabilization, debt exclusion stabilization? No, guess they're good. Any comments on the Article 4?
We just voted up.
Oh, okay, all right, we're good.
I guess we should do the same. I'll make a motion that we recommend
Don't
it.
you have to whisper?
Break.
It's like the College of Cardinals.
I didn't want to bother the meeting that was in progress.
Sorry. Okay.
No bother at all.
Okay, so should we do, recommend them one by one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
yeah.
I move we recommend Article 4.
Second. Support.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, easy. Okay, Article 5, a little bit more complicated. For 3 parts. Fields needs assessment, $48,000. Government building space needs assessment, $20,000. And common sewer, $252,000. I don't know if there's any comments.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions. I did circulate the memo on the sewer, which is just basically reiterating what I said verbally at both our meeting and the Finance Committee meeting, but if anyone has any questions on
This
that
is helpful
piece.
too. I'll take an excerpt of this for the voter information packet, so I appreciate that. And we had, I know Chuck and Ivan and Alicia had worked to develop the $48,000 figure.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple of bids in from different contractors, and the high water mark was $78,000, the low water mark was $38,000, and we kind of went right down the middle with, well, not a little lower than the middle, with a $48,000 number to do a comprehensive needs assessment. The $38,000 number didn't incorporate a couple of properties that we felt should be included in it. I'm not speaking?
Loud enough.
All right.
It's old duffers.
Is this thing on? You gotta stream it live, Alan, so you can hear it. So Ivan, Alicia, and I had gotten together. We looked at multiple bids for a field analysis. We ended up coming up with the $48,000 number because we had a $38,000 number, but it didn't take into account, for instance, the Cooper Farm property, if in fact we incorporate that into the realm, and some other pieces of land that we own. For instance, on Russell Street, just before Delaney Drive, there's some land there that could potentially, there might be enough land there to do a field. So we wanted to make sure that every parcel was kind of included in the scope and in the assessment, so that number came in at $48,000.
Good.
And then the other one, as I said, $20,000 for the town government building space needs study. I know they had one proposal for 10, which was sort of limited, but, and had not yet received other quotes. But that, rounding that up to 20, I think would be enough to give us a good
That's a lot of money.
study, yeah.
Yeah, we've got the, we've
It
got
would be, and
440
it's timely
extra, so-
guidance that we want to
I
have,
mean,
too.
yeah, that makes sense.
And all 3 of these address goals that the Board of Selectmen has adopted.
Indeed.
for
I'm
this year.
psyched we can pull up all 3 of those. It's awesome. Okay, any further? Yes, Fred.
Just a couple of questions, and I did respond with a couple of questions, Paul. Why now after 5 years? If it's one of your goals, that's in answer. But in the memo that you sent out, there was a reference to, this is 252,000 leading to 600,000. So are we being asked to sign up in effect for 600,000? Or, does 252 actually get us someplace, or does it just start the process along the road to the 600,000? And it just, if I was sitting in the audience, I'd be asking that question.
Well, that's
Because
why,
it seems like-
that's a very appropriate question. That's why, we're upfront about the $600,000 amount. The $252,000 does get us the first step, which is the build-out analysis, and also makes us eligible for applying for the State Department of Energy Resources funding as well. Anticipating that whether we included it here or not, there's going to be a design phase to it too. The first 30% increment would be the balance of that 600,000. I mean, I could have just as easily not cited that, but we know that's the next phase of it.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that,
And-
because that's really what the townspeople should know. is
Sure,
what they're
and that's
signing up for.
why it's here, and that'll be part of the presentation.
Great.
And Melissa mentioned that, the question, why now? It's like, well, why not before now was probably, as good a question as any, but the board did get on board with making this a priority for this year's action. And then since that time, we've had very recent developments which, kind of speak to it. One is the master plan, a lot of the items that are coming up there in regards to the common area, hopes that people have to do there. A lot of the projects or things they want to see happen there are contingent on sewering. And we've also had, not scientific, but anecdotal reports that the nitrate levels at the common area are only getting higher, and that if we don't act on our own, at some point DEP may come in and act for us, so.
And the last time around, this created an incredible firestorm in town. Do you anticipate a similar kind of thing, or?
Who knows? I mean, the record will show that one time it was put up for a vote, it actually got a majority vote at town meeting, but that was a borrowing article that required a 2/3 vote, and it got 60%. When the study committee held their hearings, it generated a lot of, a lot of blowback, a lot of interest. But we've been talking about this openly since the summer, and we're not getting, and at all the master plan meetings, we're not getting that same level of opposition, although I fully expect it'll be there in some form.
Okay, great.
If I may too, I think one of the things that when people talk to me about, they never realize the real environmental impact it has in the town. So that's eliminated some of the fears people had, that do we need to do it? Yeah, we do, because of the environmental impact it has in the town. So some of those people that were talking to me before, they've come around too. So I'm not saying you're not gonna get people here, but.
And also, Fred, your questions prompt with something that probably should have been included in this memo. This memo just spoke to the background of the financing, but the arguments for are, something we need to generate over the next few weeks. And there's a private group that's doing some of that. They have a website page. It's close associates to the Littleton Business Association. I think it's called, what is it, Common Cause on the Facebook. And but we'll be generating a lot of the fact sheets surrounding it too in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Paul, the 600,000 would bring us up to 30% design. What would it take to get us to 100% design?
I don't know the answer to that, but Bob Zimmerman, I got that number from him, and if it's in the 207-page report they did last time around, I didn't see it, so I'm not sure of that. It's a $4 million construction estimation, I know that.
Yeah, I was on the original study committee.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And the 252 was, 5%?
6%.
Gee, we were gonna ask you, Steve.
Right, yeah.
I didn't come prepared to talk about it.
Okay. Further discussion on Article 5.
Make a motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to support Article 5 in the November 16th, 2016 special town meeting.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Very good. Okay, Article 6.
Did you guys vote on anything?
Okay.
Oh, good,
Very
thank you.
good.
It's a rumbling.
Fishing over here. You're fishing, okay, so it's thumbs up? Okay, good. FinCom, and
Fire station. All right, we have a good breakdown there. Board, comments, questions, thoughts? And of course, Chief, if you want to say anything, you're more than welcome, as always.
He said a lot.
Yeah, he has. He said a lot.
yes for an answer.
Yeah, I'm just thrilled that the way the bids actually came in, and like Keith said earlier, that they actually, came in on the lower end of our spectrum, so if we decided to keep that a little bit of extra in the contingency, just depending on what surprises they may find when they open up the old building, and if it's not used, it gets turned back, so.
That's why, just a question, for the contingency, how does that work? I mean, that has to be used for contingency, it can't be let's bump this up and let's upgrade and so on, but how does that get
No,
managed?
First we should say that the contract amount, the construction amount, 6.5 million, that is the base bid plus all 4 alternates that were put out in the bid documents. So if nothing unforeseen happens, then you don't need any of the contingency.
I understand.
But if, when you open it up, something happens, there's something that you didn't know was there
Right.
until then you need to have a budget to be able to deal with that at the time. But it is not there to be reallocated or reprogrammed for, let's see, we can get 200 chairs instead of 10, or whatever it is.
So that's not what it's there for, there are controls to make sure that doesn't happen, I guess that's really what I'm asking. How is that managed?
PMBC.
Yeah, PMBC, yeah, they're a tough group.
Okay.
Joe Calentro holds the check.
Yeah, fortunately, they're all very smart and know their stuff and take pride in coming in the words on time and under budget.
A perfect example would have been like the police station, how they ran into additional fuel tanks underground that they weren't expecting. They were told that they weren't there, and as they were digging, they found them. So that's what that money would be used for, would be the remediation. You know, and we know that this was the old town hall, and this was the town fuel depot at one point. Those tanks were removed, but that's hopefully we don't run into any other surprises back there.
Kind of missed, yeah, sorry. No, you're good. We're on Article 6. Any other discussion?
The board approved Article 4 and 5.
What's that? I'm good.
So did FinCom. We good?
I'm good.
Move to the Board of Select.
Just for the support, is all we're doing anyways, right?
Yeah, you recommend, yeah, Selectmen and FinCom are recommending. for the-
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to support Article 6
Second.
in November 16, 2016 special town meeting.
So moving second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We good? Moving right along.
You okay too?
7, alumni field.
See what the FinCom does on.
Oh, sorry. We're not alone. Okay.
You're good with, FinCom is good with Fire Station 2, all right. Great.
3 for
Fire Station
3.
also, not a second fire station.
Okay. Article 7, where are we at? Yeah.
TOO.
All right. Do you want to give it? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess all eyes are on me here, right? So, the estimate that we have is a number not to exceed $4 million. The estimate will be in our hands tomorrow. We've gotten the commitment that'll be not to exceed $4 million. And to Keith's point, the bid documents are not in hand. We're not at that point. We are using cost estimates. But if you could put up the other slide, Keith. I did ask Gail to give us the last 10 projects that they've done that are kind of comparable to what we're doing, so that we could take a look at what their bid estimates are. I think a couple of members of the FinCom had requested something like this, I think, and I had this in mind as well. And I think it came up at, I know it came up at one of the AFRAC meetings also. So this is something to try to assuage some of the concerns relative to going forward with an estimate. Gail's estimates, on average, have been very close. They have professional cost estimators
Everything's
in-house.
always more expensive at Minuteman.
Pardon me?
Everything is always more expensive at Minuteman. so.
The 2 of the 10 projects, they did underestimate.
Choice.
There were a couple of, there was one project that they frankly missed by a fair number. They had, when they went out to bid on the Bourne track, the high school track resurfacing, when they got the bids back, they came in great. They were very competitive. It was a good bidding climate, and they were happy to come back with a bid that was that significantly lower number for them. So these guys, this is what they do. You know, they do buildings, but this division that we're working with, they do athletic facilities, and they're very good at it. They've been very professional with us. Everything that we've asked them for, they've delivered, and they're trying to work with us on a pretty limited postage stamp. And the way that we're able to rejigger Jet Field and create a better experience for the softball, baseball players that use Jet Field, and do some shifting and enable us to put up some parking. Keith, you have the overall drawing of the facility. Do some shifting to create parking, which addresses a number of issues and problems down at the site, aside from just the football field isn't safe to play on. The crown of the field, I mean, it kind of gets caught up, and that's all we're doing is replacing one football field. We're looking at the entire complex. We're doing some drastic improvements, much-needed improvements to the safety, and I can talk to the chief to that. We've spoken with the folks at the schools. The redesign of the Russell Street driveway, anybody that's had a child that's gone to Russell Street has experienced back-to-school night or the teacher's basketball game where parking at that site is, I'm not saying that this renovation will solve that because people park everywhere and we can't necessarily mitigate that, but we've put some thought into and asked Gail to come back with a design that would address as much of this as possible under one scope. One of the things that we wanted to keep in mind in doing this was we've had a lot of opportunities to do, for instance, alumni. When we did the Russell Street School, that was an opportunity for us to renovate alumni, to do the track, do the parking all at once. We didn't do that. We renovated the school and didn't do any of the outside non-educational, perceived educational facilities. Anytime we do a project, it seems like we come back and there's a lot of whispers saying, well, if we did that, why didn't we do this? So this is an opportunity for us to address the project on a larger scale. It's going to answer and begin to help us with the fields across town. You mentioned earlier in Article 4 that Mr. Bagasic, Alicia Day, and myself have gotten together, have proposed the article to do the field assessment study, which would take into account all of the fields, the usage, how best to maintain them, so that field study will give us back a deliverable that we can start taking action on and start allocating funds and figuring out how best to move forward with all of the fields. With Alumni Field online as a synthetic surface, the AFRAC committee did approve a synthetic surface. And actually, last night, we determined what the infill would be. In May, we eliminated the possibility of putting down crumb rubber. So any infill that we put in, the infill is, if you can imagine the carpet, which is the monofilament fibers, the green grass, is a synthetic surface. An infill has to be put down into that to keep those fibers standing up. Essentially, it's like a sand, an infill. Some of the products are composed of sand. We went with a product that is, any product that we went to would have been an upcharge from the crumb rubber of approximately $300,000, on average $300,000. The product that we went with is an upcharge of about $300,000. It's what's in the estimate, and it's EPDM is a virgin rubber that is used in biotech. We've got the safety data sheets. Everybody in AFRAC has had the opportunity to review each of the materials. We've looked at the samples, we've touched the samples. Many of us on the committee have gone to fields and spoken with athletic directors, coaches, athletes who have played on the different surfaces, and we came to the determination last night that we would go with EPDM. I can't remember what EPDM stands for, Mike, if it's electropolymer DM. But it plays very much like the crumb rubber, and the crumb rubber's been around for a really long time. So one of the reasons we didn't go with some of the other surfaces is they haven't been around as long, or they haven't been proven, or there's some perceived detriment to the athletes. Some folks had some concerns with concussions on the field. This rubber product, by looking at it and feeling it, my perception at least, was that it would play better for athletes, whether they're sliding or being tackled on it, or their heads or their knees or whatever are getting into it. That is the field component. We are replacing the bleachers. We are putting a press box on top of the bleachers. That press box will be handicap accessible with an elevator. The whole facility will be handicap and ADA accessible. At the gate area where we currently bring in the ambulances over here, this is where the buses would park. So this is the gate area. This would be a plaza, which would house our ticket booth and would be a gathering place, not just for the football games or lacrosse games or field hockey or soccer games, but also for the softball games. I can foresee parents kind of hanging around out there watching the game, leaning on the fence, and enjoying their son or daughter playing ball on that field. The concession stands are up to the left of the bleachers. The bleachers are that big black bar at the top of the field, pretty much in the same location where they are today. The concession stand would include bathrooms and some storage, and instead of having that extra building where we sell Lava apparel presently, it would include that Lava window for selling apparel as well. So, I'm embarrassed to say I don't recall what the increase in number of spaces will be, but that is something that I will make sure that I have prepared for town meeting.
Parking, is that what you're talking about?
Parking, did I say parking?
Spaces.
Yeah, parking spaces. So there's some great work has been done up to this point, and I look forward to carrying this forward to town meeting, and hopefully, the one term that I learned, I think it was at your meeting last week, when some of the folks that have volunteered to do some fundraising relative to the maintenance, to subsidize the maintenance, one of the women, Jillian Briggs, termed this as an outdoor community center, and I think that by putting the investment into this facility, we are creating a community center, and whether it's the graduations, picnics for Russell Street, or PE for LMS, I think we're gonna get a great deal of use out of this facility, and I'm really proud to bring it forward.
Great overview. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on this. I know you put a lot of time into this, and a lot of folks have, but
been
thank you.
well worth it.
Thank you. Board members, any questions, thoughts, comments?
Just one, if I may. Let Mike go first, he's on that committee.
Mike?
I'd just like to make some points relative to some of the things Chuck said from a school committee perspective. When we built the high school, which was before my time, there was a conscious decision made to leave the football field in that facility there, the only facility in town that has bleachers, lights, and we've just put softball, baseball, and soccer up, and field hockey up at the football field, up at the new high school. We've since grown our programs dramatically. We've brought on more sports, we have more athletes playing than ever before. And the current configuration is not sustainable for us. The type of sports that are played and the amount of traffic that we get up on those fields, we can't sustain it with our current maintenance schedule. And I don't even think there is a maintenance schedule that would allow us to maintain that. We did have opportunities to address this issue in terms of the increased participation and the increased number of sports. But as Chuck also said, we have refurbished the middle school and the Russell Street School, but we didn't do anything with the parking or traffic flow on that campus. And that's what it is, it's a campus. We would like to see, especially if we do get expanded usage of that facility, to address the whole concept of the use of that campus. And the traffic and parking flow is a significant aspect of that. So when we think about the $4 million figure, but we think about what we're getting, addressing the shortages that we've created by expanding our programs, and addressing the traffic flow and the entire impact on the campus, I think it's extremely important that we consider all of those factors when we think about the price tag that we're addressing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knox?
I just, a couple of things I wanted to mention was that, number one, thanks to the committee. I don't know, we've all been on committees that have lasted a long time, but to be on a committee that met once a week straight through, that's quite a commitment. I want to thank you for that. And I thought the athletic director, maybe 3 weeks ago, made a phenomenal presentation where he talked about all the sports that could be practicing on that field, starting at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, going till 8 o'clock every single fall. And in the springtime, the same thing. We can't go outside right now to practice because it's too wet. The weather's not good. Other towns are practicing on artificial turf. Those kids can be out in those fields. And it also included having softball and baseball part of that spring thing, because they can at least use the field to get some practice in. So the number of student athletes that will be using that field is tremendous. Then, beyond that, they set up a Saturday and Sunday could be used for youth sports. And then I know you touched on it, but you haven't gone into it all because you haven't got that far, but there is a possibility of rentals there. So I mean, these fields, the amount of use that can be, that these fields can take, and all the people that can be enjoying it is just astronomical. So I think I want to give the committee credit. I learned an awful lot about a lot of things. I didn't go to all the meetings. When I wasn't having a meeting, I tried to get there.
Thank you.
So a few comments. First, as Joe said, this committee did a fantastic job. You guys met and really hammered through this, and the participation from the town's people and the voters and the athletes and the athletic director, the school department. I mean, just everybody was geared up for it and was excited about to participate in your meetings, and that's shown through the whole process. We all know the field is deplorable, and that, you know, it's a disgrace to our student athletes to have to say that's our home field. From a coaching standpoint, from a player standpoint, from a resident, it needs to get done, is my opinion, and there is no question as to the use or any, as Joe just said, all the amount of people that can use it and the rest on the other fields. It's a no-brainer in my eyes. But the other piece is, we have planned to do this inside the levy from day one. And we are continuing to do it inside the levy right now. And that means there is no increase in anybody's property taxes for this renovation. And as Chuck said, it's gonna be a showpiece for the town. And everybody in town can be proud of it, especially our student athletes and the youth programs also. So, you know, to say, hey, we got a home game tonight, and folks to be able to come in and use an actual bathroom, not a porta potty, for the senior citizens in town not have to sit on the field and not be able to see their grandkids or their children, be able to get up to the stands. It's a necessity, and it's way, way overdue. So, great job, guys.
Well said.
I've got a couple of comments, but I did see that there was a question from one of the finance committee members.
Well, just a resident. Chuck, you talked about the bleachers. What's the capacity of the new bleachers? Is it greater than or the same as the old bleachers?
It's greater than, not significantly greater than, but it is greater than the existing bleachers.
Okay.
It was a little difficult to estimate that because the current bleachers are such a thing. They can't really come up with a number, you know what I mean? It's wooden planks with no backing, so, you know, they looked at it and they said, we think it's around 600, but, you know.
Yeah, actually, Rich Crowley and I went out there a couple Sundays ago and looked at it.
What was your opinion?
What'd you come up with?
Well, it was raining, you know, it was a miserable day.
You can't fit as many people in the rain.
No, we didn't get that close.
Bleachers shrunk.
It's expansion and contraction.
Well, I would echo everything that's been said about the great work the committee has done. And I know, you know, if you remember the beginning of the process, there was a lot of angst over some, you know, legitimate points that have been raised. I think the committee gave the full respect to the, you know, residents who might have had doubts about things, and, you know, incorporated people's input, and that's terrific. I also think it's important to underscore, and this was mentioned earlier by Chuck, but I think it's worth repeating, that, you know, one of the commitments that was made in the spring was when we came back with the field, we would come back with, you know, the first steps toward doing a comprehensive fields plan, and that's in, you know, that's in black and white in the article that funds the study. We also have to continue working with the finance department about incorporating that into the budget process, so that there's obvious ownership of the fields in, you know, in the budget process, and predictability in it, and, you know, so that it stands alone and can be viewed in the budget documents, and that we have a maintenance plan over time. So, I mean, those are things we can't solve today, but we're working on them. And as far as the distinction between having bids in the hand and the estimates, that to me is not a, I don't expect that we're going to be tremendously shocked with some change of that, and I hope we are willing to go forward with a recommendation on this tonight with the information we have in hand. And to that end, I would make a recommendation that we support Article 7.
Second.
So moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just a couple of points before I ask for our vote here. First of all, $4 million is not free.
Right.
It's taxpayers' money that's being spent here instead of someplace else.
No one said it was free.
It's
I said we weren't gonna go up on our taxes.
not gonna go up, but it's not gonna go up.
I didn't say it was
at the
free.
expense of something else.
Just want you to know that, Fred.
Fred, can I interject just for 1 second on that?
Yeah.
Do you mind? Okay. So, as we've proposed the funding mechanism, so if we didn't commingle the fire department project with the alumni field project and kind of move the money around, so initially we would think we were gonna use capital stabilization for this. But in getting together with the
No, I
finance
understand
department,
that, and I think that,
but over the long haul, it's better than free. It's not better than free, nothing's better than free. But there is an upside. There's a silver lining. I got a little carried away. There's a silver
Headline
lining
next
in
week's
that.
paper,
Yeah,
better than
exactly.
free.
Alex, strike that. It's off the record. Is this thing on? But over the term, if we fund it the way we're looking at funding it, there's a benefit to the town over the
absolutely.
life of
and
the loan for the fire
kudos
station
to-
of $1.2
kudos
million.
to our finance department for coming up with the scheme that they've come up with.
Right.
I have no issue with the funding scheme.
And that wouldn't happen if we spent, to your point, that it's $4 million that we're not gonna spend on something else. But if we're spending that $4 million or some parts of it on other stuff, we wouldn't have the benefit necessarily of the $1.2 million to the
It's $4 million
town.
coming out of the taxpayers' pocket.
But the net isn't necessarily $4 million if you factor in the $1.2 million.
It's $4 million coming out of the
But
taxpayers'
it's an
pocket.
identified priority, I mean, as is every other
No, not-
dollar we
not
spend.
a question.
Okay.
With all of the heavy usage that is projected,
Yes.
I mean, this has got to be not a normal amount of usage for one of these fields.
Indeed it is.
Our-
Indeed it is.
It's far less than
It
most
is
fields that are out
definitely
there,
normal
Fred.
usage. That's what these fields are designed for, Fred.
I
I mean, if you're a private school, you certainly wouldn't do this, but municipal facilities of this style definitely have this level of traffic. That we're
More
projecting.
because they
Because they rent it,
plan
they're
to fund
aggressive
it
in their rentals.
through rentals.
Okay, then that.
As you've witnessed at the MMA meeting that you went to 2 weeks ago at Devon's.
Okay, then that, well, and I talked to the member of the finance committee after that meeting from Acton, and what they ended up doing, not to beat their field up, is they ended up putting 2 practice fields down at the lower field, so they weren't beating up their quote stadium field up top. So they recognized that the extra traffic that was on their top
They
field.
recognize the revenue is what they recognized. That decision to go forward was by
No, this
the
is more-
residents, and the residents had an opportunity to fund that. And
This
they
is-
got a return in 3 years.
That's fine, but
It was a financial decision.
heavy usage was projected to shorten the life of the field.
Okay.
So, and whether it's 10 years or 8 years or 12 years, I don't know what it is.
I'll agree with that, but if you have a carpet at your house and you've got 5 kids or 2 kids, it's a difference. I'm gonna have to replace my carpet more than someone's
That's
2
fine.
kids.
But what you mentioned that you're gonna see a revenue stream from it, is that revenue stream going to go into a stabilization fund to offset the cost of recarpeting it in 5 years, 7 years, 12 years, whatever number of years it is? Is it going to go to maintaining the field?
So we didn't get into that level of detail about that, because the committee
That
that we're
lies
working
here.
with now, that's not their purview. That would not be our purview to make that determination.
Well-
Once the field comes online and we determine who has responsibility and ownership, whether it's Park and Rec or the school committee, or the school department, however we want to factor it, then those conversations will definitely be had. We've deliberately, because it's not the charge of our committee, come up with a plan for rental and what we would do if we got rental money. That is not our purview, and we would have been far overstepping our bounds as far as I'm concerned if we had tried to do that. That's something that's got to get determined down the road. We have deliberately been extremely conservative about how we talk about the possibility for rental, both in terms of the impact of overusage and the potential cash flow. All we've talked about in terms of usage on this field is usage by Littleton student athletes and youth organizations. We haven't put any kind of aggressive agenda on there about, now what Acton Boxborough did is, they went whole hog on their rental as an opportunity to pay down their borrowing on those fields. And I would take personally as hearsay that one person told you that we built 2 extra fields solely because we were afraid we were gonna wear out the other one. They could have easily just said, let's not rent it as much, and we'll be fine in terms of getting what the full expectation of the municipality use of it is. And once they realized they had an opportunity to get 2 new fields for almost really no tax money, it was all on the rental income, it was a easy decision for them to make. I don't see us going down that road
I've
personally.
spoken with the director of facilities over there, and it was more of the business decision to add those fields than it was to get play off. They benefited by getting play off of the premier field and putting them on the practice field, but it wasn't the intention to build those to get those folks off of there, it was to generate more revenue.
All right, so we don't know who's gonna manage it. We don't know who's gonna maintain it.
We know who, it's a limited possibility of parties who are gonna do it, Fred. I mean,
Well,
we've always
we
figured
have
out,
a-
it's
we have
gonna
a
be
memo-
Parker Rec or the school
We have a
department or
memo of
something.
understanding
Right.
right now, and your fields are in horrible shape. So.
There's one
the
field in
same three
horrible shape
parties
because of
are
We-
gonna
We've known
cross.
since the spring, when this committee was appointed, that it wasn't their charge to answer those questions. They have a written charge of what they were supposed to do, and it's kind of a straw man to now say that they're being, hit for having not delivered on that.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I think what we said at town meeting, to get everybody together, there were real concerns with people in the town about would all the meetings, would all the fields be addressed? And how are we gonna manage this going forward so people feel like it's over the whole town?
And we-
So as both of us, Board of Selectmen and so on, we said we would come together and bring all those when we came back, and we're not coming back with all of those. We're coming back with what, we don't have firm numbers from a bid. We don't have the maintenance plan, we don't have the maintenance cost, we have a proposal to go out and have a study, but there is no plan yet. And we don't really have anything definite in terms of who's gonna run this thing, who's gonna manage it, where is the budget gonna be?
We just had unanimous votes to support Article 5A,
Yeah, to say
which was
there's gonna be a
comprehensive
study.
needs
Yeah, I
assessment
know.
for recreation fields.
But that's not a plan.
That's the
It
first
just
step to
seems-
creating a
So
plan.
let me,
Betsy, it
I'm
is
just not trying to
part
be
of the
negative.
plan. Part of the scope is
Can I
to
finish
do
my
a
thought?
job of
That's your,
Okay,
that's yours.
I hear what you're saying. I support this. I want to let my field go on. I just think we're rushing it. Okay? We said we'd come back to town meeting. We're not coming back with what we said we were gonna come back with, and we don't have firm numbers. And the process to date is that we have firm numbers when we go to town meeting and ask for money. We don't have it. What is the impact if we wait until spring town meeting? That's my question.
It puts us in an unenviable bid situation because you're too late, because they've already bid other projects.
Well, even before we get to that point, the field that we are currently playing on up at the high school will be 1 year worse, and we will not be able to have home games on that field.
We have field hockey people that saying, we don't wanna play in Littleton.
We have
We
soccer
don't wanna come to
people, we have-
Littleton and
we have
play our
lacrosse,
sports.
We have lacrosse, so we'd have to forfeit
Scholastic
home
team
games.
saying, no, we don't wanna come to Littleton. It's a disgrace. 1 more year is too long. It's a disgrace.
And I haven't seen any suggestions from my former colleagues on the Finance Committee about what we should be doing in terms of the changes in the budget process or oversight. I know Chuck and I have had conversations with Bonnie about following up on that, and everybody's been aware that we were putting forward this article for the needs assessment, and I wonder how much more we could do until we get that needs assessment done, other than making some changes in the structure of the budget process. I don't know what else would have been expected,
We
because
need
it
more
certainly
data.
hasn't been brought up since last spring in any level of detail beyond that which we've talked about it.
And just to answer some of, Betsy, I appreciate your passion, and I appreciate your support of the project as a whole, and I understand your question on the timing. I have had conversations with the school department, I have had conversations with, well, Jim and I have spoken to some extent about field maintenance. I've had conversations with Alicia, and I've, essentially, we need to blow up the MOU with this field online, because I think this field has to be under a different understanding, under different care, custody, and control. And school committee meets tomorrow night, I'm gonna be at that meeting, so hopefully some of those questions will be answered. But I think that with us going forward, the maintenance on this field, Mike just did a huge, real comprehensive maintenance plan and a comparison to natural versus synthetic and what's involved in the maintenance of the synthetic surface. With us putting much of the play that's going on up at the high school right now, that alone, removing all of that foot traffic, if you will, off of that field, is part of the plan, because it's gonna allow that field to rest, it's gonna allow us to do something up, that's gonna allow Jim to either slice seed or do something else to try to bring that field back. We can stay off of that field. We can reline other areas up there but when it's your actual playing, varsity playing surface and JV playing surface, we don't have the capacity to do that right now. We can't put these flat, round ball sports on alumni right now because it's not conducive to playing those sports. So there is a sense of urgency. To Mike's point, the bid climate and some of the Gale estimates proved it out. If we go out to bid and we put bids on the street in January, February timeframe, we're gonna get much better pricing, because we're gonna be the first ones on the street. And it's going to allow us to get the project done so that we can be on alumni in the fall. So we'd lose a spring season at alumni, but we would be offloading all that capacity off of the high school as of the fall, and allow us to start to recoup, and that's part of our plan. We need to rest those fields at the high school. No matter what our plan is, moving forward, I would make a recommendation that if alumni doesn't pass, that we shut down those fields up at the high school and allow them, at least that with lacrosse and soccer plays, in order for it to rest and recoup, because it needs to. I mean, Jim, you might be able to speak to that as far as a maintenance standpoint, is if there's someone on it all the time that you need to do the maintenance on it, it's not gonna grow grass with people running across it.
If I may, Madam Chair. So in regards to the MOU too, I mean, this is a drastic change in all athletic participation in this town. So as Chuck said, it's gotta be blown up. It needs to be looked at to have a state-of-the-art facility brought into an MOU. That's the bottom line. And to do all those things Chuck just said, it means, okay, this worked for 4 years, 5 years. Now it's a new ball game, so to speak. Let's now have all those participants, schools, park and rec, highway, and anybody else that wants to have a say in this MOU, and get together and hammer out a new one.
Just one more comment about the MOU too. The MOU was put together before we had lacrosse in Littleton. And it was fine at the time. It served our purposes. The reporting mechanisms and the lines of responsibility, it worked. But as soon as we put that high-traffic sport onto the fields, we didn't adjust the MOU, nor did we adjust the maintenance plan on the fields. We used the exact same maintenance plan we'd always used. That's where we started to fail. Now, that's just in terms of the condition of the fields. There are other aspects in the condition of alumni, the crown, the too narrow, et cetera, that lends itself to needing to be refurbished. But in terms of the overall impact on all the fields, when I say all the fields, I'm talking primarily the ones at the high school and alumni, the ones that we play varsity sports on, is if this comes online, then Chuck's right, we can then start to address our issues. If it doesn't come online, then we're gonna be looking at ourselves and saying, we have to start over, and what can we do? At that point, and the other thing is, we can't address the MOU until we know what is there left to address. I mean, if we have this field, that changes the way we're gonna address it. If we don't have this done, or we have it done one way versus another, that'll go a long way towards determining what we can or can't do. And we don't know that yet, so there's no way to address the MOU until after we make these determinations.
But I think the issue is bigger than the MOU. It's not just the maintenance and who's doing what. It's who owns it, who makes decisions, especially you start talking about rentals and other things. So somebody in town says, I'm gonna use it, and somebody else says, yeah, but we can rent it to these guys and make some money. Who makes those calls?
So-
It's gonna be, you really have to have some accountability here.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's part of the care, custody, and control. But to Mike's point, until, I mean, if alumni doesn't go through on the 16th, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm celebrating the 17th in my mind, regardless of what happens.
Get your life back, for a week anyway.
Chuck, I think you said it earlier, if it doesn't go through, if it doesn't pass, the MOU, the whole field structure is gonna be looked at whether it goes through or not.
Right.
It's, the impact of it not going through is gonna be greater than if it does.
And
I don't think there's any quarrel anywhere on our committee with the project. It's needed, everything you've said is absolutely correct. The questions we're asking are the questions that's going to be asked. And the questions we're asking is because in the past, we've gone forward with projects with not understanding thoroughly who's in charge afterwards, not having a maintenance plan in place. I know this has to go forward quickly. We have the money set aside for a maintenance plan, but as long as you understand that once this thing goes forward, those things have got to be addressed. They cannot be left just to wander around and then, well, Jim was supposed to do this, but Joe is doing that.
Can I suggest that maybe you guys designate somebody from your board to work with us on that?
Paul and I are the champions for this particular goal, fields.
In the financial piece of it, so name somebody, we'll meet jointly, and hopefully we'll have it, huh?
Me.
Well, that's your committee's decision.
I mean, you guys can decide.
Whoever, you decide whoever, but,
Just one more comment. The school department is looking at this as an exciting opportunity to address those issues.
Yeah.
We're excited about having to work on that, because we want to do it right, because we'll be doing it right for all the right reasons. So there's nobody that's hesitating to say, let's get this right. We would like to have a reason to meet to deal with those issues. And we would much rather be meeting to iron out those kinds of issues than meeting to figure out what's Plan B, because I don't think we're gonna have one.
Right.
And trying to address those issues and the impact it would have on the students and the families in Littleton is something I don't really wanna have to contemplate.
So,
Go ahead.
just on a kind of a, I want to make kind of a different angle.
Melissa said, go ahead. You put me in that chair for 1 week and I just take
My role,
over.
of course, is to be the Debbie Downer and the bad guy, I appreciate that. But the other concern that I just have to say it again, okay, you've got the plan, things are good now, we're gonna do this inside the levy. I know the financial people have worked it all out, our finance team. The economy could take a hit, right? And even if it doesn't, it's gonna be stretching. And so I'm still concerned about the maintenance budget, that the capital budget going forward, not just for this, for the town. We've got more assets. We have to maintain them. We've got things that have come out of it, because our capital has been so flush lately, we've taken operating things, like the school department gets curriculums funded now out of capital as opposed to out of their operating budget. Some of those things may get squeezed going forward, and people need to know that, okay? $4 million is real $4 million, it's coming out of the thing. And so I just feel like people think that we can just do this and it's free. It's not gonna have any impact. It will have an impact, almost for sure it will. And I just want people to be aware of that. If it's a commitment for the town and we wanna do it, then that's the vote. But it's not like it's, and I'm not picking on you, Jim, when I say free, because it's out there in general, right? That somehow we can do this with no feeling, and I think we will. There'll be a lot of positives come out of it too.
Yeah.
But there may be some times when we're saying no, or I'm sorry, or oh, that hurts a little bit, because it's not there.
That's what they pay us for, to make those tough decisions.
Big money. How's that paycheck? If I could just address Fred, you made a comment about, so let's say we do rent the fields out. I absolutely foresee, and there's a lot of other towns that are doing this, so we're gonna copy what somebody else is doing where it's working.
Discussing it.
We've spoken with some of the other communities. The gentleman from Chelmsford has been phenomenal. So we absolutely want to set up a fund, not a fund, a revolving account. It's something that Bonnie lets us do. Those funds will go in there and they will be designated for, whether it's replacing the carpet in 12 or 14 years, throwing those numbers out there, because everybody else throws 8 years.
And let's not forget the group that has been, just
Fundraising
like
on
the
their own.
track. There's a group in town of citizens in town that have been doing a fantastic job, and the last, I think, was over $12,000.
Over 13.
Over, what is it, 13?
Over 15.
Over $15,000 already in hand in a month. So there's a lot of folks out there taking it serious. There's a lot of folks out there that's hear what you're saying about maintenance, and they're putting their money where their mouth.
But my maintenance isn't the track or the field.
I get that.
I'm talking about the whole town.
I get that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, someone said maintenance up there.
Yeah.
Well, and right now, we maintain all the other fields. It's already in the operating budget.
You just don't do very well.
But that's-
We don't do it well enough.
Well, we don't do it well enough because
It's use.
of the use, yeah. And what this will do is it'll offload the use. And so maintaining the other fields, that'll fit, it'll fit, as opposed to, no, it doesn't, because we kill these fields.
There's too much capacity on
Yeah.
my behalf.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing, by the way. It's a good thing to be able to say, we have so many kids in this town, we're overusing our fields. There's a lot of participation out there. I think the athletic director said something like 70% of the kids,
60 with high 60s.
high 60% of the kids in our high school are in scholastic athletes.
Yeah.
It's amazing, that's awesome. That's awesome.
It's a great problem to have. like
I mean,
you
this is
said.
Sure.
Yeah.
a perfect example,
Great.
look at the track. We went from really not having a track that we could host a track meet on, and now there's 130 or somewhat kids on the track
Right on.
team. And we have a successful track program. We've got some kids every year that we're seeing something in the paper about, kids in our small little town going to the States and competing.
I think that's
Pretty
being
cool.
grew by a factor of 3. after the
Absolutely.
track came on.
Which is cool.
It's a good problem.
So maybe we can meet next week, somewhere, since it was gonna be a week off, whoever's representing FinCom and Bonnie and.
November
Chuck and I.
17th, I'm not meeting.
Yeah, I mean, the more answers that you can.
Take
Yeah, if we can take some of those issues off the table between now and town meeting, let's do it.
Sure, that's, yeah, I'd like that.
Okay,
You
take one more
let
comment, then
Bonnie
we'll
know
wrap
we're gonna
this
need
one
to lean
up.
on her for.
Mark Rambucker, Hartwell Avenue. I have a question. When we did the track, we went out to a debt exclusion at the request. Now, the debt, we never actually filed the debt, but this project is almost 6 times the size, and we're not going out to a debt exclusion. Why wouldn't we follow the same process?
No need.
We did do a debt exclusion vote
There's
on
no
the track.
Yeah, but that time, there was no,
We
there was
took
no
we took
plan
a vote,
going
we didn't
into
do
it.
We did the levy.
There was no plan to fund it within the levy going into it, but that became possible after the fact.
After the vote.
So we paid it, we ended up paying it off inside the levy, but yes, there was a debt exclusion vote up front, but then when it came time to fund it, we were able to do it through.
Yeah, but we're borrowing $3.8 million over how many years, but we're not inside the levy. We'd rather do that than ask the town to fund this outside the levy, whether or not we did it.
Just a point, we're doing both the fire station and the track, the field inside the levy, right?
Right,
So it's not
correct, yeah.
just the field inside.
Yeah, the fire station, we're gonna do 20-year bond issue, and that's why we're applying the
So we're in a fortunate
2.9
position to be
million
able to
in
do both of
stabilization to
them inside the
reduce those
levy.
interest costs. That we're doing bond anticipation notes for the, for alumni field, which would require, basically in our capital plan, fund that one of the items each year would be to pay off the debt.
And we plan to spend money in capital, out of capital stabilization every
You
year
guys gonna
for
vote on
something.
Article 6?
I need a FinCom motion.
All right, you
Melissa,
guys,
you have one more here.
sorry.
Erica Pudgorning, Fox Lane. So when we went to town meeting in May, we had a design with a design estimate of 2.5 million. So now we have a design with a design estimate of 3.8. That's like a 41% increase, and it's still a design estimate. And so why do we trust this one so much more? Why do we know that this is more accurate?
The design that we had before us last time was a concept design, and it was done by Mr. Reardon at no charge. He gifted it to the town, and the people that did this cost estimate are professional cost estimators. Mr. Reardon is not a professional cost estimator.
Doesn't his firm do the same thing?
He doesn't. His firm does, but he doesn't. He did that for us as a gift.
On his own. It wasn't
Okay.
confirmed that it was.
All right, guys, I want to wrap this one up. Okay, one more comment.
Yeah, I'm Katie Caruth, Goldsmith Street. I understand that you have, a strategy for use of all the fields, and you have assumptions about resting the fields and how everything else will benefit by having this. And why aren't we having that sort of planning professionally done by somebody who has expertise in turf management, who can help us best use all our field resources? Because I feel like, you
All right, so
just...
Katie, can I answer that? So we are doing that. That's what we just approved in Article 4. We're approving a firm to come in and do the field analysis, and they're soil experts, they're field experts, they're planning experts, so that's being done.
But
Thank you.
Okay.
but Chuck, you have a use plan for the turf field in mind? And my understanding is that you yourselves have developed that plan?
No, we haven't. We've done that, we've been meeting since May, every week.
No, I know, but
And
was
we have
that
developed
like-
that plan using the input of all the stakeholders. The most input that we've gotten has been from the athletic director. He's given us all of the schedules based on this year's schedule and what the use would be at Alumni Field if alumni came online. And we've also used the input from professionals that we actually have hired. We hired Gale. This is what they do. And they're guiding us through this design.
Okay, thank you, Chuck. All right, we gotta wrap this one up, guys. We've been on this one for a very long time. So FinCom, did you want to take your recommendation here, or?
Motion, maybe.
Give us a second here. No, not
No,
yet.
just so you know, we got an update on 11 for the 205 master
Okay.
plan. CPA,
Recommend.
or CPCT did say we can use CPA funds.
Recommend.
Easy one.
All in favor? Aye.
I know.
As long as the motion says not to exceed 4 million. Is that what it says?
Yes.
Do I have, okay, so I put into, okay, you've got your vote by the skin of your teeth. And
I'm missing half of my teeth, so it's not a lot of skill.
well noted that it's not to exceed 4 million.
Right. So when you say, what was the tally, Fred?
I'm sorry, what?
The tally, you said skin of your teeth, was it close? What was it?
It was
Yeas,
It was
nays?
unanimous at the end of the day.
Oh, okay.
So,
Thank you.
So you're being
Good job.
funny.
But we don't feel real good about it.
Well, then that's our objective. Between now and the 16th, we've got an opportunity to settle those remaining doubts, and I don't know who it is, whether it's you, Betsy, or whoever, Greg.
Right.
Well, let's just
Greg and Betsy.
leave no issue out, that isn't on the table. Let's just get them all out there.
All right, moving right along. Article 11, Keith already updated us that the CPC did vote to use CPA funds, $205,000 off the top of my head for
That's
Article
correct.
11 for surplus property, Foxborough Road. Any questions on this one, guys? Comments? Paid for, we're good.
Why do we want this land?
Asked and answered last Tuesday night.
We're not keeping it out of the hands of developers, that's for sure.
Wait, this is the mass surplus?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So we park in these spaces, right?
It's,
there is a let's see, this is the DOT land?
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
there is a developer who owns land adjacent to it, who was interested in buying it,
Yes.
and the DOT agreed to,
Allow the town
Was
to
first.
for the,
And it either abuts or is near other
Conservation land.
conservation land. and
It's across the street from the Williams property.
it's across the street from the proposed Williams
Right,
land,
exactly.
but that's not a done deal yet. so-
No, but hopefully they go hand in hand.
But this would potentially,
If we acquired this property, it would be a piece of as we discussed at FinCom last week, it's a piece of the puzzle that connects ultimately where we have town-owned property to the north, we have the Route 2 right away to the south, and we're trying to link.
Green belts.
Yeah, we're trying to link the ability to have trail systems and other things. This property is only available now, that it will, if our deal with Mass DOT is that our November town meeting doesn't buy it, they will auction it off, and it will be developed. We have the potential here to provide off-street parking, which was not as readily available in our negotiations for the Williams property. We have the opportunity, and it's recommended by the Conservation Commission and by the Community Preservation Committee.
CPA voted it last week.
Okay. Okay.
it does abut Foxborough, right? There is.
Yes, there's frontage on Boxborough
Frontage,
Road. yeah.
And I'll make a move.
Yeah, no, please.
Make a move that the Board
Looks
of
like
Selectmen
this.
vote to support the following article, Article 11, in the November 16, 2016 special town meeting.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. Moving right along.
Joyce's property is this, which is right across. The street side of the road.
Which is our next topic.
FinCom is okay with Article 11?
When you follow the process, we vote quite quickly.
Thank you.
On most articles.
I think you squandered it
Just as
all
a-
in the last article.
Did we vote yet?
Yes.
Yes.
I was a yes.
We eyed.
Yeah, okay.
So we had a brief conversation before Tom got here on Article 12, that we acknowledged that we've received, earlier today, we received from Attorney Ray Lyons a proposal which has specific dollar amounts available. It's two options, this price for this much land, higher price for larger property. The selectmen have not had a chance to review that. Our goal for tonight is to put recommendations in the voter information booklet by tomorrow. We can't do that for that property because even if we were of a mind to tonight, because the Community Preservation Committee is the funding source, and we would want to go back to them once we have a deal and get their vote on it. I would say that the board's best opportunity to do that is to have a deliberation and reach a decision would be at their next meeting on November 7th, which is a week from Monday night, so I don't think we'll be able to realistically address this issue tonight. But we acknowledge I think we're getting a lot closer. I'm glad we have the specific proposals to look at, and I don't know, Melissa, if you want to recognize Attorney.
Mr. Lyons. Yes.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to apologize for the lateness in getting these numbers to you. It's because one of the people who was involved in putting together the plans that the appraiser was going to base his numbers on and do his analysis on suffered a very serious medical condition. And nobody else in his office knew that I had contracted with him to do the work that was necessary. We lost a month to that. So it was not until last Friday that I got numbers from the appraiser, John Avery. And I've now had 2 days to confer with my client who is on the road to put some numbers together, and I sent them off to town council. So I apologize for the lateness of this. It was not deliberate, but I hope that we can keep the discussion going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray.
So do we, for now,
Yeah, there's no action tonight, so the motion would be, in the booklet, it'll say, motion to be made at town meeting, and the recommendations of the various committees are forthcoming.
Okay.
So
he
next,
said.
the next article is 13, the tax title properties on Narcissus, that one of the issues that the board had was to ask town council to redraft the motion so that the motion was clear, and you could look at on your packet here, pages 18 and 19, that we wanted to have language that indicated that the development would be restricted. The way the article was written, it said that the Board of Selectmen would adopt the conditions under which those 4 lots could be disposed of, and after further discussion, questions from FinCom, and the indication from the Selectmen is that the motion should be as specific as your intent is, which is to restrict the development of those 4 parcels to it be one building lot and that there not be a building on it.
very good. Any comments, board? Questions? We discussed this one already at length, I think.
I've got a question.
Sure.
I struggle with this one, guys, and I brought it up at our last FinCom meeting. I think the town is giving away the value of the land. These are buildable lots, or at least a couple of them are buildable lots, as I understand. And why would we want to sell a piece of land at a fraction of its value as the landowner? I know if I own this property myself, I wouldn't want to give away the development rights and sell it for pennies on the dollar. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I brought this up at our last FinCom meeting, and I'm struggling with why we would want to just dispose of a piece of land that, for pennies on the dollar.
And what I responded that, and board members chime in, was, a couple of different reasons, and I don't know if it was you, I'm not remembering, but
I
someone.
wasn't at the meeting when you discussed it, no.
No, I mean,
It was last
it was
Tuesday-
that thing.
last
Someone
Tuesday
made
night.
the comment,
Yeah, the list was
yeah,
there last
someone made the
Tuesday
comment,
night.
I can't remember who was, that area is already, overly built up, and that's one, in my mind, one advantage here is, protecting some land from overdevelopment in an area that's already overdeveloped. And you make, a point from a financial standpoint, but, for me, I think protecting part of that land is actually a good thing in this case. And I remember the word favor being mentioned, and I did want to bring up that this is in no way a favor to anyone. It's just an opportunity, in my mind, to protect the land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the other thing is, at our meeting, probably 2 or 3 months ago, when this first came up, we had the neighbors before us saying, this is a good thing. We don't want more houses.
Of course,
You
every
know,
neighbor would say.
understood. We don't want more houses because it is overbuilt. And these little postage stamps type developments have these enormous houses that can't go out, so they go up. And that's what they were afraid of. So by getting this back on the tax roll, we're taking care of a section of town that is overdeveloped on these little tiny itty bitty lots that we've seen houses get torn down and these
Behemoths.
large towers are built. So, from a town perspective, from a neighborhood perspective, and from a perspective of, let's not forget, we got 40B knocking on our door. With all these developments and the 2020 census coming in, we're blowing our projections out of the water with the Sanderson development, with the,
I understand that.
so numbers are coming up. So it's as the chair said, I think it's a win-win. We're getting it back on.
Politely
the tax roll.
disagree.
Okay, all right. You asked for a reason, we gave it to
That's
you.
it, yeah. Betsy and Steve, you tied each other, so Steve won.
I guess I just don't understand this. I heard Mr. Carr say it puts it back on the tax roll, but how does it do that? Who's gonna buy these lots if you can't develop them?
We had some
The abutter.
petition, the butters came in and petitioned us.
Do you have agreements?
No,
So there's no guarantee?
well.
You have to be in a butter.
You have to be in a butter.
Well, if I'm in a butter and you restrict this, there's no incentive for me to buy that because it's already restricted.
And the butters know that and they welcome it.
And so why would they buy it?
Because they want just some of the reasons we said. That it's overdeveloped, they don't wanna see these big tall houses going in on these little postage stamps, and there's an ability to do some septic work for some of the neighbors.
How much square footage are these 4 lots all combined?
Talking off the top of your head.
5 is it 11? No.
Looks like
Total?
only one of them's really buildable.
There's only one, yeah.
Yeah, 2 of those 4 lots have already been voted on by town meeting to be in the so-called abutter lot sale program,
The 2 in the middle?
where undersized lots are offered exclusively to the abutters for acquisition.
But I know if I was in a butter, there would be no incentive for me to purchase that additional property if it's deed restricted and then add to my tax base.
We had those people that showed up and said, this is what we want. The only reason why we did that, because we had the neighborhood show up before us and say, will you do this for us?
But
I'm not
if I'm a
convinced.
neighbor, of course I'm gonna ask for that, because you increase the value of my
Sure.
property.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing?
If they
Well,
don't, if they
it
don't
makes
follow
sense.
through as they promise, we can turn around and do just exactly what you're saying and sell it. I mean, it's not
I
our,
mean, any of those,
that's
the
not our
idea
desire.
of the, it's not a public park, it's somebody's, you're increasing the size of somebody's yard, if they
Right.
buy it. But to Steve's point, if it's already restricted, there's no reason for them to buy it and pay taxes on it, because nobody can put a house on it anyway. You've already restricted it.
Right.
So there's no reason to have to buy
But to the
it.
point of returning it to the tax rolls, if they do buy it, and as you say, it increases their value, we increase their tax bill. So,
Okay,
Right?
but
I
you're
mean-
still giving them a gift, but the idea that we wouldn't want somebody to build a big house on that one spot, well, any of those houses there, any of those abutters could tear down their house and put a big house up anyway. So this one lot in the middle of this overdeveloped place when we have hundreds of houses going in, it just doesn't,
But we don't have the same opportunity with those other
yeah, but it's not really
locations.
an
Hundreds of
opportunity to
houses.
do what? I don't get it.
Yeah, if it was 10 or 20 homes, I'd be
Yeah.
like, okay, I
Yeah,
get
yeah,
the point,
yeah.
makes sense. I guess I'd ask the question, if you own this property yourself, would you be doing this? And saying, I want to give away the development rights and give away the property? Because that's really the message that I read that you're sending.
Okay.
Okay.
Make a motion?
Sure.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to support the following articles. Article 13 for the November 16, 2016 special town meeting.
Second.
Moved and second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And no recommendation?
Yep.
To
Not to
liberate.
recommend this article. All right, yep.
No.
You do not
My
recommend?
wallflower group photograph.
FinCom does not support. Or you were with us when it
You gotta have
counted.
one no.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the first hour of the meeting.
Believe me, Chuck would take that, no.
And then I was just calling to your attention that there are two remaining articles on the warrant, 16 and 17, voter petition. You're not obliged to adopt a recommendation, but, so.
Not no action, negative.
And just for comment on those, personally, I support the intentions of Article 16, but I think we should do that independently as part of a broader project to become more transparent through the website and other means, but I don't see the need to have that in the form of a bylaw, or at least it's not even a bylaw, but it's a warrant article, and I don't agree personally with the intention of Article 17. The town meeting is an open deliberative process, and it's kind of distinct from the elections, and so I don't like the spirit of that. But no, I wouldn't recommend taking a position on either one of them as a board.
I tend to agree, except maybe, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And Fred, I see you have your hands up.
But just a question, I know when this came up before, the Board of Selectmen were going to get together with town council and reach out to the petitioners.
Right.
Did that happen? I mean, is
Yes,
this something
it
that's...
did, and that both of these petitions were submitted in, I have to say, modified form, but still not addressing the underlying concerns that the board had to the degree that we would have. That on Article 16, the requirement for posting online notices, what actually became more apparent when the revised petition was submitted was that the intent of the petitioner is to have the online posting be an alternative posting method per the Attorney General's standards for the open meeting law, and that determination is made by the town clerk. It's not made by town meeting, and the town clerk, for a lot of good reasons, has determined that the bulletin board is the posting method, and it's not that, while the term alternative might sound like a second, in fact, it means a substitute method. So our degree of reliability we have in a hard system is very high, and the degree we have in an electronic system is going to get better, but it's not there, we're not there yet.
So there was contact, but...
Yes,
contact
they
did
came
not
down, we had a
actually
dialogue,
get the
Tom
results.
advised even then, and then we still got two of the three, one dropped out, and then.
Okay, great, that's all.
So on 16, I mean, it even confuses me a little bit. If the town clerk really controls this, then what does this article even do? You know, like.
It doesn't, it's aspirational, but town meeting cannot direct town clerk to do something that is that's in her purview to make the decisions.
So
can't
can
take
we-
her
It's not a legally binding vote, it's more of a sense of the meeting vote, and that, although we've been guided by sense of the meeting votes on things like plowing and sanding private ways, that you had the authority to do it, and 400 people told you what their opinion was. And you governed yourself accordingly, so.
Okay. So can we, so there's a support, no position, can we not support? Like,
Yeah, but
No?
I would just say on a citizen petition, I would tend to just leave them alone and let them, make their own arguments.
Okay.
We could say Board of Selectmen has no recommendation, or we could just delete, or not say anything. We just, a motion be made at town meeting and just not even reference.
And we can do what you suggest, we don't have to.
We can do
is the
it,
thing.
yeah.
And this is, again, one of our goals is to be transparent and to get everything out there, and when the new website, when we get all the resources that we need in order to
Absolutely.
continue to progress, I think we're making every effort to have
I
all
think
the
it'll be
different
important
boards
for the board to speak on both of these
Sure.
articles for all sorts of good
Absolutely.
reasons, but you don't need to adopt a recommendation
Right.
on either one of them.
Okay.
And it sounds like you're not. Okay.
FinCom, any 16 and 17, we're on the same page on 17 as well?
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed any, no, okay, no, all right.
They already said no once, so.
There's got to be no
We're out of
recommendation.
booze.
We have no bananas.
Yeah, okay, all right, are we done with article recommendations?
Yeah.
Yay. Very good, thank you, FinCom, thanks for coming down. Great discussion, moving right along. Okay, so for this discussion, 2A and, just 2A actually, never mind. 2A, we have the ability to go into executive session to discuss amongst ourselves.
You want to do,
2B first?
I'll do it.
2A or not? Or 3, or, it's up to you guys, we have that flexibility, so we can discuss the value of land privately or not. And we have plowing standing private ways in addition to that in minutes.
We're going to be talking about the TIF tonight.
Indeed.
Yes, right now.
If we could do that, then we could get out of here.
Watch the Cubs.
Oh, rub it in, Betsy, thanks.
Okay,
We don't get the big
so,
bucks that you guys get.
all right, so we.
So do you want to go into executive session to discuss the, I mean, you can do it.
It's negotiations at this point, right?
Yeah, it's negotiations. Tom's here to talk about it. You would need to come out of executive session, though, at the end of that to take action.
Yeah. Board, any feelings either way? Would you rather discuss negotiations in executive session or discuss an open meeting? Any preferences? No?
Yeah, I have no preference.
Okay,
Paul, anything?
No preference.
no preference. And FinCom, I take it you're interested in the, no, it doesn't matter.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right, if we don't have any motions, then we'll continue.
So we'll continue the discussion and talk about an open session.
Negotiations.
We're okay there, right?
It's up to you.
Yeah, you can certainly talk about it in open session.
Okay. All right. So last time we met, we had a discussion with the buyers of what we know and love as the Very Fine plant. But now, and then the Sunny Delight, and now being looked at being bought by Patriot Beverage as their go-forward name, which is yep, exactly, which is a Pepsi bottling company. They have a plant down in Air, and they're looking to expand their operation to the Littleton Very Fine Sunny Delight plant. We met with the gentleman here at last meeting. They're really good people, have a lot of good background with the plant itself, and discussed the desire to have a TIF. At that point, we said we would allow the negotiating team, which was myself, Selectman Knox, Keith, Tom, and Steve. So we did meet last Friday, and we authorized us to continue the conversations as we noted that our policies around TIF, when we give them, who we give them to, and how much we give them for, are not developed yet. So we did have that meeting on Friday, and we discussed a couple of different things, and we went back and forth. And we did come up with a new proposal for how we might support this business moving into a very important building in our town, one that's been vacant for a while, and one that bringing them on would generate, let's see here, I think it's 4.5 or something to that effect additional, 1.4 additional million in tax revenue a year. I don't have the number here, but it's around there, right?
I'll put it up on the screen.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, bringing them online brings an additional 1.5, I guess, to start off with. And now we can talk about where we landed up, if that makes sense in negotiations. So the discussion we had with the two gentlemen was, at what year do you break even? In terms of you putting a significant investment in this building, about 22 million, 12 million, and 10 million based on the building and the structure, right? Or is it 12? And then the other number is for
10 million, there, 10 million for the acquisition of the property, 12 million for the investment in equipment. Yeah.
and that 12 million is then where that additional tax revenue.
Well, it's actually, when we look at those two areas, what we see is that the incremental value that could result, that the amount that could be subject to a TIF agreement, is the increase in the property's value from what it is now, which is $4.5 million, to what it would be, according to our computer-assisted mass appraisal software, if it went from vacant to being occupied as manufacturing. Its new assessment would be $12.6 million, so that the difference between the two, which is $8.1 million, is to coin a phrase, a TIFable amount, incremental value which could be discounted. So the proposal, and as you recall, the gentleman had requested during the meeting publicly last week a 20% discount. What the team came back with was a front-end loaded amount that goes no higher than 10%, and then goes down to 5% by the end of the TIF. It's proposed to be a 7-year TIF agreement, 10% in years 1 and 2, 7.5% in years 3 and 4, 5% in the remaining years. As shown here, the value of that tax benefit, that is the amount by which what would have otherwise been the tax bill gets discounted, is $22,000 a year for the first two, when you're at 10%, and that gets down to $11,000 a year by the time you're at the 5% discount. Over the 7 years, that adds up to $113,000 in value. During that same time, the town will be collecting $1.47 million in taxes we wouldn't get if the property remained vacant. The other part of the negotiation involved not only a TIF agreement, but also a host community agreement, where they freely expressed and enthusiastically expressed their desire to be a responsible corporate citizen and member of the community. And contractually, for starters, I would say, as they're part of their community membership, that contractually in the host community agreement that they were agreeable to making a $20,000 payment, community benefit payment back to the town at the point we were trying to figure contractually when would we have that kick in. From their perspective, it's when they reach their business target. And from the standpoint of job growth, we saw when they added their 50th employee was when it would kick in. There will be there'll be a reporting mechanism that when we would know that. I should also mention that when they were here last week, the proposal was to create 40 jobs. This proposal commits them to 50 jobs, with 20 of those 50 coming online in the first year, and then it's 8,886 to be achieved by, so that's by year 5, I think. So the payment we anticipate would be in year 5. So that's the deal. This would allow the company to apply through a TIF agreement, which on the schedule that they are looking at is to be able to go to the December 2016 quarterly meeting of the state's Economic Assistance Coordinating Council. That's the preliminary application they've submitted thus far. It's the supplemental application they're working on. That application requires two things from us. One is that it requires that they actually negotiate a TIF agreement and submit that to the state by November 9th. Secondly, it requires that the town meeting vote to authorize the selectmen to sign a TIF agreement in a similar time frame. And the state is fine, that is knowledgeable that we have a town meeting on the November 16th. If you call the second special town meeting for the same night to act on this TIF matter, that the state would accept that for the December their December quarterly meeting. So that's the proposed time frame here.
Okay, and so maybe just a couple other comments. So baked into what Keith was saying there, so we got a 7-year time frame. At 5 years, they break zero. They get to their zero mark. In the next 2 years, they're on the positive track, and to your point, which you described, they hit their business target as they're on their kind of own 2 feet and ready to rock and roll, and so we've supported them to get up on their own 2 feet. There was one other thing that I'm not thinking of right now.
The other thing I had meant to mention is that by virtue of their having a TIF and being approved as an economic, part of the Economic Development Incentive Program, the company would qualify for state investment tax credit, which they would not otherwise be able to get. We can't quantify what that is because the state won't tell us, but I did have Clancy do an analysis. He plotted all of the awards that had been made for the last couple of years, and from that we could, well, number one, not divine any particular pattern. Gateway cities seem to do a lot better just categorically than we would, but it's possible, my guess is that they might qualify for an investment tax credit of between $50,000 and $100,000, but it's only a guess. It could be less.
If we hadn't engaged them with the TIF, then they wouldn't qualify for the state.
That's right, they could only get it for this.
That's the real hook that we have, is they don't get that if we don't do this.
Right.
Exactly.
Just two additional points about the TIF. The first is that they are pledging to use best efforts to give those new jobs to Littleton residents where they can. The second is if they don't meet their job creation numbers, and they have to report every, I think it's February 28th, that they've satisfied that. So if they don't meet their job creation numbers, they don't get that year's tax reduction.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, question I had was, did the TIF group talk to the water department? They're the major benefactor, if you will, on this. And I guess two things. One is, was there any discussion of remediation funds? Because we have a water tower that may have to come back online sooner rather than later. The bumping the water up, if they draw about what Very Fine did or Sunny D did, it'd be about 20% of our water usage, which might put strain on the water purification system, and they might have to change out elements out of their filtration system, which could be $300,000–400,000. I mean, Did anybody talk to?
Yeah,
Well, we had the water department in at our, we had two meet sessions. The first one was in September, and we had Scott Edwards and Nick Lawler at that initial
So
meeting
that loop was
with them.
closed.
So they've been in this
And
from
to
day
add to
one.
that, the commissioners met and spoke about the usage, very excited about the usage. And as a matter of fact, it's, if there's a drought like this year, next year, and they're doing what Very Fine was, there's a possibility we may have to have a greater restriction on water.
Right.
Possibility. As far as DEP is concerned, they're the ones that restrict how much water we pull out of the ground. So that's already in the process. As a matter of fact, Keith, if you could forward all the contact information that you have for Patriot to
Sure.
Mr. Edwards, I'd appreciate that.
Sure, be glad to.
So that was talked about, and it's also gonna, might help us get the Cobb well faster because of the usage and DEP seeing that we need now
We need to-
more. Though instead of a 5-year licensing and permitting process, maybe get it down to a year or two.
Right, okay.
So it's been talked about, yep.
That's the real kicker here, if we can get that. then that's-
Excited
that's a
about
real
it.
benefit, yep, absolutely.
Excited about it.
And I have to say, it was my distinct understanding that they would not be ramping up to a Sunny Delight like level right away. That's their goal. Maybe they get there or somewhere close to it by year 5, but they're not going to be in year 1 or 2. So the extent to which, as you say, that there are some other capital issues that we need to address or the water department needs to address, well, we'll have a few more years of additional water income from whatever they are consuming at that.
In fact,
But
when
the real
they-
benefit to the
when they-
town would be the Cobb well. That's the key, if we can get them more quickly,
If I may.
that's a real big benefit.
And whether or not these folks come online, Cedar Hill has to be fixed no matter what.
No matter what. Oh, absolutely.
So, and that's why we're, in town meeting, we're asking to buy that
The land,
that
right.
lot.
No,
So,
absolutely.
no matter what, Cedar Hill's gotta be fixed.
No.
Sorry, Joe.
To make them on more quickly now.
Just initially, when they finally get started, their first objective is they have one line running only by late spring, so it won't be the full extent that we saw with Sunny Delight right away. They want to get something running and see how it goes, so.
And along those lines, is the intent to pretty much use the facility as it is as opposed to major capital improvements to the,
12 million capital improvements.
what's that?
Well, the equipment, yeah, they accept the building as it is, there's no proposals that we've seen for expanding that building.
Right.
But they have to do, I think, I don't want, some significant retrofitting to have it meet their needs.
What was important too is that the holding company that had it was reaching the point where they might be selling off.
They're ready to auction
They're
off.
ready to auction off all the equipment.
And then we would have been with a large warehouse at the best, so it's, the timing is very important.
Yes, sir.
Keith,
I'm
can you just
sorry, sorry. Name and address, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, Erica Podgorny, Fox Lane. Would you mind just repeating the percentage the host agreement was to give back once they,
It's $20,000
$20,000, sorry.
we project year 5.
And they did seem very willing and eager to continue to donate to the community in some shape or fashion in a regularly. I won't give it any sort of cadence, but they.
Pepsi in all the schools.
Open up a company store like Very Fine has.
They mentioned
You
that.
can get free juice for a parade.
There's no early one.
Yes.
Mark Rambacher, Hartwell Avenue. We said we're getting $4.5 million in, is the assessed value for the taxes now. What was it when it was active?
Back when it was Sunny Delight, you mean?
When it was Sunny Delight, was it the 12 million or was it a discounted number from that?
Pretty close to that.
It was around the 12 million.
Yeah, it
as I
was
recall.
close to- yeah, it was-
Bonnie was here at the last meeting, it was around the
So
12.
we're giving them a discount from what we were getting in taxes when it was
Right.
occupied previously. It's not that they're going above what it was.
No, but the amount of taxes we're getting now from it is based on a value of $4.5
I understand
million.
And they're gonna do improvements, and there's gonna be real property on the premises, so that number will do nothing but go up. Whereas if it was vacant,
Well, it's not going out much in the spreadsheet there, is it? I can't barely read it, the numbers are pretty small, but it's still 12 at the bottom,
Yeah.
7 years.
Hello?
What number's not going up, what are you saying?
In year 7, what's the estimated net value there is 12.
Oh, no, we can't, we're using the formula that the state allows. The state does not allow us to speculate on what the valuation's gonna be in a future year.
Yeah.
So we have to, we have to go with the current values now, and even contractually, we don't agree to what the value is, we agree to what the percentages are, because the way that the TIF program works is, it allows you to discount, it allows you to agree to percentages for a discount on qualifying incremental value. It does not allow you to change anything else in assessment law. So whatever the rules are that govern how the assessors determine the value, whatever they determine, what you can and can't tax, those rules are all in place. We're just saying contractually, it's what's in blue, and I know it's small, but those percentages are what we agree to contractually in the TIF agreement.
And that aggregates at 5.9%, right?
Yeah, if you take those percentages and apply them to the constant tax rate assessed value, it gets a figure of 7.1%, but if you then reduce it by the $20,000, it gets you down to a 5.9 net discount.
I have one follow-up question. Why do we front-load these rather than back-loading them to encourage them to stay longer and do more development over time?
Because they need the break more upfront than later. And they've got more money going out the door at the time they have the least amount of income coming in the door. So that's when they need the break.
And to Keith's point from the beginning, they initially wanted 20%. 20 over 10 or 20 over 20?
Well, they wanted 20 for the longest time they could have it. I mean, negotiations change very quickly.
So the last thing I'd add, or not the last thing, but one more thing I'd add is, so this is, again, an iconic building, an important building in the community. It's been vacant for a long time. At the time when it went vacant, we knew, and it was a different board, it was composed of different members, right? We knew what we had to do. We knew we wanted to do whatever we could to get somebody that we could trust and respect in that building, someone of comparable desirability, if you will, and community partnerships. We said, let's have at it in the direction, like I said, that we had at the time, and that's, gosh, almost a year now, is let's do what we can. So let's be willing to negotiate these sort of things. Now, since then, we've learned a lot. We've learned, facts about TIFs. We've had different membership of the board. Things have changed. And we've committed to making sure that we have policies going forward, again, like I said, of when do we give them, who do we give them to, and for how much? And we don't have those. We need to get those. That's definitely a priority. And second, we shouldn't entertain any more discussions about a TIF until we have that. And that is what we said back then. That ship had sailed before we had that information. But that is absolutely a steadfast thing that we need to do. Policy, then TIF. That's it. Conversation done on that moving forward.
I mean, to your point, we, as a board, sat out here, was it BlackRock, the investment company?
New Mill Capital.
New Mill Capital. They were here showing us what the building was all about and kind of their sales presentation. And we pretty much told them, we'll do whatever we gotta do to get somebody in that building. And so when they came in here last week, their expectation was, through their realtor, Littleton will do whatever they can to get you in that building. Now, to their credit, they told us flat out that we're coming. So it was kind of a, in order for us to start the relationship on the right foot.
Exactly.
Because I'll tell you, we worked tirelessly. We called every brewery, microbrew, distillery, Polar Beverages, Adirondack. We called every possible bottling company that we could think of and reached out to them, and we weren't having much luck trying to get someone to come in and show some interest in that building, so this is a welcome partner in our community.
Yeah,
So-
I think they'll be a
And by
really
us-
good fit.
Yeah, and to Fred's point, this is the hook. By us doing this, it enables them to go to the state and get some other resources and hopefully get them to be here, to Mark's point, for the long term. And that's what their thought and expectation is.
Thank you.
Nice work, guys, thanks.
Yep, any other discussion?
I had said my piece before, so I think I just wanted to add that in recognition of the hard work of my colleagues, I'll be voting along with you on this tonight.
Thank you, Paul. And again, commitment, policy next, no more discussions.
Although I do want to, when we get to the minutes,
Couldn't let him go.
No, it's just the minutes. The minutes don't reflect the discussion we had last time around. It's kind of and this is just kind of a stylistic thing, but there was no, you wouldn't read that and get a sense of the points raised back and forth, so,
Okay,
yeah. And I would like to have that amended before we,
Vote on them?
yeah.
yeah, okay. For, take a motion then.
Which glasses?
2A.
It's motion number, you want to do motion number 2 from 5A, and then the motion from 2B, both of which are now up on the big screen. So,
You got it? Sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve a tax increment finance agreement and host community agreement with Patriot Beverage LLC relative to 3 and 20 Harvard Road, both agreements subject to approval as to form by Town Council, with the TIF agreement to be subject to further approval by town meeting and the state's Economic Assistance Coordinating Council.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, Paul, on the minutes.
We're already adjourned, so.
okay, thank you.
We got our recommendation.
Thank you all.
We got it.
You're recommending this article at town meeting?
Okay, all right, 2A is done, 2B,
As written.
As written, and it occurred to me that what you might want to also do is and vote to support Article 1.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to call a special town meeting for Wednesday, November 16, 2016, at 7:30 PM, Charles Ford K Gymnasium, Littleton Middle School, 55 Russell Street, to open the warrant for said special town meeting, insert thereon the authorizing approval for tax increment financing agreement with Patriot Beverage LLC and former Sunday Library Fine Property, 3 and 20 Harvard Road, to close the warrant and to direct the constable to post said warrant forthwith.
And to support Article 1.
And to support Article 1 on said warrant.
Second as amended, Joe. Second as amended.
Second is amended.
it's been moved and seconded as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
3, plowing, sanding private ways. So we did receive some petitions, Star Hill Road and Green Needle.
We had a problem diagnosed at the last meeting, and we found a solution, and in that if we have a petition signed by all of the abutters and they give a deposit, that Jim the highway can do the work. And so we actually had 2 of the roads come forward, both with deposits. I'll have to say, one of them is still missing one signature, but what I would ask you to do is to approve both roads, conditioned upon getting the last signature, rather than hold it up anymore.
You got the checks?
We have the checks.
So
We
we
have the
deposit
checks from
the
both.
checks.
We have
Free cash, yeah.
500 from
Is it a
Star
money
Hill
order?
Road and 300 from
All
Green
the
Needles
good folks
Road.
on these
So
roads would
I
never
recommend we do both of them.
pull any shenanigans.
We good to go? Any comments? Jim? No?
No, I guess I'm happy that they came forward quickly.
Thanks, Tom.
The letters to the other people went out later, so we may get some more coming.
Okay.
Right, and we've set the deadline that if we have those by the time we post our next meeting, then you can vote on November 7th to do.
Otherwise, we're not plowing.
Well, these ones were really critical that we technically shouldn't plow them unless
They're
they
ripped
got
up.
fixed. The other ones, we could be a little more flexible, but they should get fixed. So
Yeah,
we were,
well, it's either we plow or we don't. We're telling these people, fix it, you paid up, you stepped up to the plate. I mean, everybody should be the same.
Yeah, I mean, the other
only
letters got
fair.
out, the other letters got out later. That's probably why they're not here, because they got out later.
Okay.
What were the addresses in the other ones? Which other
Yeah,
streets?
Oh,
Alright, don't worry about it.
Cricket Lane,
There's a bunch of them.
Because I made a couple phone calls on this to say, hey, last night at the
Tom,
meeting.
don't forget your coat.
List of rates.
No, it's my
Okay.
code.
All right, so guys, just take a look in the additional information section. If you know anybody that lives in those roads, maybe reach out to them and say,
Hidden Wood,
The guys-
Oak Ridge.
yeah, those letters went out at the beginning of this week, or I don't,
yeah,
We still got another meeting.
yeah. But I mean, maybe a phone call from one of us if we know somebody on Omega Way or.
Read them
Oak
out
Ridge or
for
Stratton.
people who are watching at home.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cricket
Go ahead.
Lane, Green Needles, well, Green Needles is done, right?
No,
No?
The back half
Well,
of
one,
it,
well,
Didn't we just?
that's one part of it.
one part.
All right, so the folks on Cricket Lane, Green Needles Road, back half, Hidden Wood Path, Oak Ridge Road, Omega Way, Star Hill's all set. Whitcomb Ave, numbers 139 to 149. You've been sent letters. Please reach out to Jim Clyde, and we want to try to help you fix your roads. And if you can get together a petition to the highway department, answer the letter that comes in the mail to you, and we want to try to expedite this process so that we can get your streets plowed.
yeah, I mean, they could still do it on their own, I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
Yes. You can still do it on your own.
Yeah.
Please do it your own.
That's what Jim wanted to say.
But to your point, contractors are not taking small jobs right now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
They're
it's
doing
just-
big parking lots and, you know, it's difficult to get somebody. So the fact that
Well,
you've
with
offered
that-
this
With that
service.
said, a contractor today, we're trying to push off some paving because of the temperatures tomorrow. He said if we don't do it, we're not coming back. Big client. So,
Really?
so that's how bad it is, or I should say, how good the economy is.
Right.
That you can
You can
Tell-
choose.
tell who you're working for and who you're not. So,
Wow.
Okay, good.
So he's serious.
Yeah.
When did the plants close?
Usually sometime in November, right?
no, they go as late as they possibly
Yeah.
can. If people are buying mix, they stay open. You can buy
Ready for
mix
a
all
motion?
year.
Madam Chair?
Please.
Yeah, just gonna drive to it.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to the Town Code, Chapter 183, relative to the petitions and deposits for temporary repairs to private ways submitted by abutters to Star Hill Road, $500, Green Needle Roads for $300, to address conditions outlined in the Highway Department's October 13th, 2016 report on plowing, sanding private ways as follows. One, to determine the public necessity and convenience required such repairs to be made at expenses of the abutters. Two, to approve the projects as to recommend by the Highway Department. Three, to require indemnity agreement or identify agreement executed by the petitioning abutters, indemnifying the town for all claims, damages which may result in making such repairs, with unanimous written agreement by all abutters that work shall commence by the town of Littleton shall be held harmless from any and all damages, claims arising from such repairs, and that, what road was it, we're waiting for one signature?
Green Needles.
Green Needles.
Green Needles,
back half.
the Green Needles back half is waiting for one
Petitioner.
petitioner to be signed to execute the agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank
Sure,
you.
minutes from the table.
So we'll bring the minutes. back.
Yeah, no, and Clancy, not picking on you, you just.
No, we just did a stylistic action minutes.
Right, yeah, so I personally prefer, and in this specific case, would like to see, more reflection of the dialogue, not just the actions taken, and if, you can go back and find what was on there, thanks.
Thanks.
It's all on tape.
So we just
For
leave
your
these for
lovely
now,
viewing.
and we see the amended version and then approve it next time? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll bring the minutes to the next meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much,
you.
folks.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you. A lot done.
Outstanding.
Good